Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Disgustingly Resilient podcast and another episode of Infection Critical, and we're going to be looking at another best Death Guard list of the week. This week we have two to look at, so we're going to get straight into it, and this is obviously the first week of August, so Pariah is in full swing. So, quickly, for those new to the series maybe, it's a weekly video. We look at the best Death Guard performing list of the week. Doesn't mean it won an event, necessarily. It could also just be like the best 4-1 or the best undefeated list that went possible. We're going to look at the list, the units they brought, and we're going to look at some of the matchups, and if possible, reach out to the player. Unfortunately, it hasn't been possible this week, but I will try and keep doing that if that's something people can do. So, up first we have Grant Kaufman, who went 6 wins and 0 losses, taking second place at the Palm Springs Open with 167 player Super Major. So incredible feat to get this one. Unfortunately lost on battle points in the end, I believe it was, but to get 6 wins and no losses, go completely undefeated, massive congratulations to him. Now, we have one thing I want to say is another person running the exact same list from the same team, Daniel Redhouse, or Reedhouse I think it is, did also go, I think he went 5, it was either 5-0-1 or 5-1, but it was a different event, but the same team and the list is exactly the same. So although I'm not going to look at his because it's literally the exact same list, so I imagine this is something they talked about between themselves to create, but I do want to shout him out as well and also say well done to your performance as well, mate. So into the list. We've got a standard biology putrefier foul blight spawn that's going to be going into a 10-man marine unit. We've got a plague bus, which I'm super happy to see. So we've got a plague bus going along with 2 malignant playcasters, and we have typhus as well. So then into the infantry, we have the full 10-man plague marine squad to join the biologists on the foul blight spawn. These are actually rocking full melee par 2 spewers in that squad, and obviously the plasma gun the sergeant, because you might as well take the plasma gun, but a lot of biotic weapons as well. And I imagine this is possibly because sometimes the heavyweight plague weapons can just whiff, like falls to hit, especially if you run into anything that has -1 to hit, it can be a bit grim. Inner Circle Companions are everywhere at the moment, they are -1 to hit innately, so going into that you're hitting on 5s, which is not where you want to be. That's what we want to do to our opponents. So I imagine the biotics there are almost there's like backup extra melee output, plus they hit on 3s, so down to 4s, it's not as bad, and it's still, you know, it's still really good melee. It's still going to be AP 3 with -1 save, and lethal on 5s with that biology putrefier, so still really like it, but I still love the inclusion of the spewers, because those two, plus the foul blight spawn, give the unit still great overwatch that nobody really wants to run into. Unit 10 Death Guard Cultists. Cultists are just super versatile. They can hold home, play scout, do plays, move block, deny, force bad trades, all sorts of stuff like that. I always include at least one squad of cultists in your army, because like worst case scenario, they sit on your home objective. So happy to see them. We got one big brick of 6 Death Shroud Terminators, so I imagine now, because we only see the one character, I imagine Typhus was leading this most of the time. That's a massive, big brawling unit there. So basically you have Typhus in the squad, that's going to be -1 to be hit. You could potentially take the -weapon skill, ballistic skill contagion, so that's -2 to hit effectively, because it does stack, because of the different modifiers. That's going to be really hard for a lot of armies to approach, especially if you keep 2 command points up for -1 damage. And it's really good for just dominating the middle of the board, especially in these melee-heavy environments we're seeing at the moment. So I think the big inclusion of the 6-man, although it's quite a commitment, I don't think it's too much of a commitment. I mean, it's only 240 points for the 6 of them, and it has incredible output. It can kill most things it touches in melee. It still has great overwatch, even without the Lord of Virulence, because nobody wants to take 7d6 flamers on overwatch. Typhus in there is also just auto-include, because Typhus is just the mortal wound plinging machine. So happy to see that in there. Again, really nice to have that big block to just sort of like, you got your 1 block of your 10 plague marines, so your fights first and your lethals on 5s, etc. And then you got another big block of death shots, 2 very hard to approach to melee focused units for the Death Guard. Now we do have a plague bus here as well. So 2 malignant playcasters in a rhino with, and so is the 10-man. He's obviously in a rhino as well. But no plague marines to go with. That's totally fine. The plague bus can honestly do enough work on its own that it is enough of a threat. Like, that unit can genuinely just wipe out infantry units quite hilariously. And also the good thing is, it is still technically 3 units inside, well, including the Rhino. So they're still great for doing actions, you know, maybe like you get out, you get containment, you can shove a playcaster out the side, have the Rhino drive off, spray something else, or even better, like potentially, you can, you know, have them drop out, do an action while also scoring something like engage. Then the Rhino drives forward and gets in another quarter. So it's still like a nice utility package, but the amount of damage that thing can still bring is still really gross, and it's still really powerful, even without Plague Marines inside for the extra utility. The Plague Bus is still a Plague Bus, so it works without Plague Marines as well. Now we went for triple bloat drone with flesh mowers. So this is a lot of like pressure. A lot of people don't like the idea of a flesh mower coming near them. I personally am not a massive fan of flesh mowers. I mean, I don't think that's the wrong word. I like them, but I prefer the sprayers. But in this list, if you look, when we get to the allies in a bit, his shooting is taken care of elsewhere. So the flesh mowers almost provide the pressure that people want to react to. People don't want to be charged by a flesh mower, so they're going to have to deal with it, come out and engage it first, which can then lead to bad trades, because again, these things are only 90 points. And he's got 3 of them. So if he really wants to, he can run all 3 down one flank. That's a nightmare to deal with. Or he can spread out the pressure, maybe even put one in strategic reserves, things like that. But again, bloat drones are just incredible at the moment. 3 of them is only 270 points, which is fucking wild. So I'm happy to see 3 of any variety, Blight Launcher, Flamers, or Flesh Mowers in any list, because they're just really, really good at the moment. Super annoying, can't be killed easily, but can also be overcommitted to quite heavily and force those bad trades. So really, really like the Flesh Mower inclusion, the Bloat Drone inclusion. It's just a solid unit at the moment, and honestly, most lists are running 2 to 3. Then we have Rotagus again, so coming in heavy on allies this list, and I know that upset some people last time, but the second list we're looking at today has not got any allies, so just be aware. Rotagus popping up again though is quite interesting. Maybe Rotagus has just got to the point where him being so cheap, because he is really cheap for what he is, got a good flamer, he's got a nice little ability that he's useful for. The sweep attack and the slap attacks are really, really good as well. So he's just cheap as well, and he's got a 4-up invulnerable, so he can be quite spiky on survival, and he's got a lot of wounds. And I think Rotagus is also benefiting from the fact that Ironstorm is kind of dead competitively. So a lot of people have moved away from these vehicle-heavy armies. So in response, we've seen the meta swap to a lot of MSU infantry. Again, we're looking at Blood Angels, World Eaters, Dark Angels taking a lot of infantry. And in doing so, a lot of people to counter that have moved away from the heavy weapons required to kill Ironstorm. Now, don't get me wrong, Sisters of Battle still do bring quite a lot of vehicles like Immolators and Castigators, but in general it seems to be toned down. Like a lot of armies are bringing like one solution to a tank, so like, you know, a brick of 6 Eradicators with a character. But because of that, a lot of armies aren't really prepared to kill something like Rotagus. Like again, and even if you do, chances are like you don't really get that much of a great trade off him, because he's so cheap, and the 4-up invulnerable can just spike and suddenly he's alive and still kicking around. He's also got deep strike, so you can put him in reserves. And the other good thing that Rotagus has is just the fact his base is so fat, as much as it being a disadvantage in some instances. It also means he can sit on some objectives and just block them completely. Like, no one can get on the objective without being engagement of Rotagus, and people don't really want to charge Rotagus because he has that 2 damage sweep or the 4 damage bonk. So he can actually do quite a lot of output. And also he's going to half OC anyway for anyone near him. So has Rotagus become meta? Possibly. Maybe it's just the points being so low. Maybe it's the meta changing away from so much anti-tank that's now allowed Rotagus to shine a bit more. But, I mean, he's showed up twice now in 2 really strong lists, so maybe Rotagus is something we should be looking at if you're happy to play allies. We do have a unit of Nurglings. Nurglings, again, just being a fantastic little bit of utility. You can infiltrate them to move block. You can stop scout moves. They still score some secondaries, like engaging all fronts and the behind enemy lines that don't require 2 actions. So they're okay in that regard. And mainly they're just going to block out opponent infiltrators as well. Again, you really don't want an opponent being able to infiltrate on like 2 objectives or 3 objectives. Turn 1, they go first, there's terraform, and all 3 of them start terraforming, because you're not going to stop it all. At least the Nurglings guarantee you can deny one of those things from happening. So then you can pressure the second one, maybe they get 1 off, but again, they've used 3 units at that point, so you're okay with that. They're usually just probably going to try and terraform 2, and you need to be able to deny one of them, so that's okay, so you can then terraform it. And then triple War Dog Brigands. So a lot of contention on, but we are seeing War Dogs popping up in every list again. War Dog meta is truly back for Death Guard, it would seem at the moment. Triple Brigands providing that anti-tank firepower for this list. Still got that Gatling cannon. The synergy between their rule to get +1 AP versus closest targets, and the Death Guard -1 save contagion, puts the Gatling cannons to AP3, puts the melter to AP6 potentially, which is just absurd. Like, Armor of Contempt plus cover still makes it AP4. Like, that is wild. Like, you got a 3-up save, even with Armor of Contempt and cover, you're not getting a save, which is insane to think about. D6 plus 4 damage is quite nice. These things do hit on 2s naturally, which helps their reliability. They can still swing, they can still have whiff turns, but that's why you tend to bring them in the full 3. You don't really just bring 1 brigand, you tend to bring 3 brigands. But the great thing here is the flesh mowers set them up. The flesh mowers go out. If they react to kill the flesh mower, you put the brigand in a spot where it can react, pop out next turn and kill whatever killed the flesh mower. And for a unit to kill a flesh mower, chances are the unit that killed it is more than likely over 90 points. So then you make a trade up. So you're happy to sort of like trade someone's tank, like a castigator or an immolator, for a bloat drone. And at the same time, if they don't want to expose that unit to kill the bloat drone is then free to move and charge next turn. So they work hand in hand. I've seen this reverse the other way, where you can go carnivores and like predators, and it's just the same role. The predators take the step of being like, hey, you want to engage the carnivore, I'll come out and shoot you. Like, you don't want to engage the carnivore's obviously got much scarier melee than a flesh mower, and it's much faster. So that again is its threat in its own right. Now the good thing about the flesh mower over the carnivore though is the fly keyword can't get move blocked as easily. But yeah, triple brigands seem to be coming back into the meta. Really strong. It's a very simple, solid list. This it's just got it's meat and potatoes. Death Guard's always been meat and potatoes. You got your big Plague Marine squad. You got a big unit of Terminators. You've got some trading skirmishy pieces with the bloat drones, maybe a cultist early, and then you've got like the shooting firepower brought by the allies, and then you've got Rotternus as like a sort of like Rotternus is like kind of like a flavor pick at the moment, who's also doing pretty well and pretty strong into the meta. Also, interesting thing about Rotternus is him being able to half OC is very important against stuff like Inner Circle Companions, because I think they are 2 OC, and a lot of Dark Angels who have meta at the moment are running them. So being able to drop them back to 1 OC means you can easily out OC them with like a tank and something else, or like your Plague Marines will just do it naturally. So a cool little thing there, and also halving movement is also always really good. So let's have a look into his games that he had to play. Let's have a quick similar drink. So this I believe was GW terrain. It's a US based player, this one. So round 1 he was against Deathwatch. Do I need to say more? F's in the chat for Deathwatch. Rest in peace, guys. It was nice knowing you. The Deathwatch list was a bit of everything. Had a lot of kill teams, had a couple of Redemptors, but it was one of those where the guy's clearly playing Deathwatch because he likes Deathwatch. Deathwatch has been the worst army for quite some time now, so no real surprise to see a very strong Death Guard list like this absolutely run over the enemy in this instance. Now the next one's a bit more interesting though. 120 victory over Imperial Knights. Now don't get me wrong, this list like is going to be like a good game against the Knights, but to 120 of them is quite impressive. We do have Canis Rex, who's very good. A Knight Lancer. The Castellan's the interesting point, not very good at the moment, but again, you still expect the Castellan to dominate a lot of the board presence and be like, yeah, if you want to try go here, I'll kill you. So at least the Knight player should be scoring, and I didn't expect the 100 points. So I would love if I could get an answer from him how he managed to do this and get the 100 to 20. Maybe the Imperial Knight opponent was too aggro and then get punished really hard by like the 6-man brick or the 10-man Plague Marines, or the opposite could also be true. The Knight player played way too cagey, allowed a Rapid Ingress to come in, allowed the Brigands to get set up into good positions where trades are now no longer possible. Because again, you put out a bloat drone, if he comes and charges it with like a Lancer or a Canis Rex, you then kill that. Okay, cool, I lost 90 points for 400. Like, as long as you play around the Castellan's line of sight, which is not that hard to do sometimes, especially on some of the GW boards, which can be quite very dense, as long as you know where you're moving. But even then, with four small knights, I definitely would have expected him to hold some primary. So this says to me that the Death Guard player was probably pretty aggressive in this matchup. Maybe he got an early pick, like maybe he got some lucky melters through and Canis just went bang and died instantly, in which case then you just push the advantage and smash him because that's such a big thing gone. But this is Knights. Knights can be very polarizing in matchups. Knights can, if something goes wrong for the Knights player or the Death Guard player outplays it, which he obviously has done, then the game can swing very quickly and very harshly. So yeah, congratulations on that game, really well done. And I still don't understand how he only got 20 points still as a Knight player, because I'd expect him to at least at least have held home a little bit, you know what I mean? Maybe scored a secondary or two. But again, with only 4 small knights and 3 big ones, he's only got 7 units, so anything that's doing actions is going to be really, really hard for this army. And especially if he punked one of the large knights early, now he's down to 2 that can do actions and shoot, and 4 small. So again, any losses this army took early, maybe just overexposed, really, really punishing. Now, next one was a really close one. So against Yunari with 69-65 victory. And this Yunari list had everything. It had Dark Eldar, it had Harlequins, it had normal Eldari. So War Walkers, all the usual stuff. Shadow Spectres, had a big squad of Harlequin troop with your Rain, with a Feel No Pain and all that stuff. It was a very toolboxy good stuff list. Lots of things that are going to be very hard for you to keep on top of. Our Death Guard player does not have indirect. And he might have Havoc launchers, but again, like, that doesn't really matter. We don't have like PBCs and stuff like that, so getting 3 kills on this MSU is a lot harder. So for him to beat this one must have been quite an intense game. You can tell because the score is so close. This Yunari list is going to be extremely good at scoring because it's so toolboxy. Lots of MSU, which stands for multiple small units or minimum sized units, for people who might be listening. So having this toolbox of all these different kind of units is going to be great, and it does show because the score was super close. So how he managed to hold on to that one and take the win on that one, again, I imagine it was either due to him just trying to realise the MSU toolboxy good stuff can just be brute force through. I imagine Rotagus would actually be a giant problem for this matchup. Again, we have like stuff with Haywire and stuff with Scourges and Reaver Jet Bikes and whatnot. Rotagus doesn't really care for any of that. None of the squishy stuff can kind of go near Rotagus because of the Flamers, the Overwatch. And again, that's true for a lot of the other things, like the Death Shroud. Eldar are a very expensive army naturally, so like even the War Walkers and stuff like that, if they get traded quite early, or they expose themselves, maybe they kill a bloat drone, but then the Brigand gets a melter shot back onto it that gets past the invuln. D6 plus 4 damage is going to basically kill it most times because they only got like 7 wounds or something like that. So this was a very intense game. By the looks of it, the score is very close, but well done on that win, because I can imagine that one being a brain melter, and probably one of the hardest lists that he's faced here, in my opinion. Now the next one, he was against the Sister Battlebrings of Flame with double Paragon suit, double Castigator, Dominion squads, and Seraphim. So this is interesting because the double Paragon should be quite scary in this matchup. He has a lot of vehicles, and they're going to get full rerolls to hit and wound. However, the Paragons are expensive, and I think because he's gone quite heavy on these units, which are a lot of points, again, it could have been a case, and it looks like a case, where if he was smart, he dodged the Castigator's line of sights, he forced bad trades with the bloat with drones, because again, he can't ignore the bloat drone, so if a bloat drone gets in, it actually can hurt Paragons. If you take the -1 save contagion, the AP1 naturally, you can then also +1 AP if you're worried about armor or contempt, and you're going to get quite a bit of damage through. They're only 4 wounds each, these sister suits, so 2 going through on 4 ones will kill 1 each time. So it means they probably had to react, shoot it with a Paragon squad, but then again that can get reacted to quite easily. If the Sisters player plays too safe and too cagey, the Brick of Death Shroud is going to come in and obliterate something. And again, the Plague Bus is going to absolutely murder the Seraphim and the Dominion squads if it ever gets within 12 inches of them. So this is going to be this would naturally be kind of like a cagey sort of like who's going to make the first move game. But with this Death Guard list, I imagine he was more than happy to be like, here's a bloat drone, do something about it. You've put so many points in your Paragon suits, you don't have any cheap squads that can go kill that or go deal with it. Again, Immolator comes out with 5 Dominions. Cool, I will now kill the Immolator and kill the Dominions. I've traded 90 points for like near 250. And the Seraphim squad doesn't have that many great targets. Yes, it has the devastating wounds that it can pock, which is always great. But the problem is, what's he going to shoot at? It's probably not going to kill Brigands, it's probably going to keep it screened. It's not going to come in near Rotagus, because Rotagus will overwatch it and kill a lot of the Seraphim. It's not going to come near the Death Shroud, because they'll overwatch it and kill a lot of the Seraphim. And it's not going to come near the Plague Marines, because again, they've got the overwatch, or they're going to be sat inside a Rhino. There's not that many great targets, and especially if you can get some damage done to that unit before it gets a jump on you, so maybe like a Rapid Ingress Plague Bus, manages to get in range. If that Plague Bus fires once at any of these Sisters infantry squads, they're wiping the unit like quite easily. So I can see that being something that happened, and even the Paragons are really scared of the Plague Bus. Like, the Plague Bus shooting into the Paragons is actually quite scary, so the Paragons and the Dominions and the Seraphim are all in bad positions here. The only thing that's really good is the Castigator with its range, but because of the boards and GW being quite dense, there's a good chance that he made an angle where the castigators, to get an angle to shoot something, would then be exposed to a brigand, and a brigand can quite easily deal with a castigator if they haven't kept miracle dice specifically for that. But again, 95 to 47 win, very, very strong, very convincing win there, so congratulations on that one. Round 5, we've got another 79-73 victory, so close again, against Hypercrypt, Silent King, Heavy Destroyers, Scorpex, and double Doomsday Arcs. So this is actually quite scary. Again, Hypercrypt allows them to get any angles they need to get. The ignore modifiers isn't as big. It's nice because it can be used to ignore our save reduction. However, Silent King's probably not going to stick too near many people. And again, Doomsday Arcs are all invuln basically anyway, so I'm not expecting them to make good use of that, really. But what I can say is this is still going to be tough. Anything that can teleport every turn is going to be really hard for Death Guard, because mobility is king, we don't have mobility, and this is the ultimate form of mobility. Heavy Destroyers are quite scary into stuff like your Brigands, because again, 2 shots get through, the flat 6 each, bang goes the Brigand. Against your Rhinos, probably won't even get a save, bang goes the Rhino. And these things are teleporting and gain angles every turn, so it's very important to make sure that they die and that you get them out of the game. And the same with the Doomsday Axe, very, very scary. However, that being said, it's not the greatest for holding primary, because you got the Scorpex, you got some Doomsday Axe, but part of that, there's very little OC in this list. Again, Doomsday Axe have like 4 or something, but again, all the infantry's 1. The MSU stuff, once it starts dying, because he's got some death marks. Once that starts dying and stuff like that, it's going to be hard for it to start scoring. It's going to have to start using the Doomsday Axe to do actions, Silent King to do actions. And the Scorpex are very, very scary, but again, they have no way around the fights first, unlike some other armies that have fights on death and stuff like that. So the fight first brick can actually hold a primary very easily and very safely. The Scorpex also don't really want to go near Death Shroud, because they overwatch, they're anti-infantry. They'll put them to a 4-up save. They don't have a great base defensive. They've got a 3-up save, and that's it. So they will take a lot of damage from that. And then if the Death Shroud do swing, because again, I highly doubt the Scorpex are going to wipe out the entire unit. That's -1 to hit and -1 to wound. The Scythe's going back going to be AP3, giving the Scorpex a 6-up save, that's it. And every 2 that go through is going to kill a guy flat out. So the Scorpex really can't do a longer than initial impact engagement against the Death Shroud. The Doomsday Axe obviously been a problem, but again, smart plays with the Brigands, watching your angles and making sure anywhere they come in can then be reacted to is what's really going to decide this game here, and I think that's probably what he did. But as you can see, close, it is hard to stop them scoring, but he did just enough to take it off them, and I do wonder if the main issue here may have actually been his dominance on primary, so I would love to know that. I would love to know that. Sadly, you can't get a breakdown of how the round-to-round scoring went. And then, very last up, the Dark Angel Gladius, so an 89-71 victory against the Gladius, triple Deathwing Knights, double Vindicator, and lots of MSU scoring. So this is an instance where you probably wish you took Mortarion, because again, triple Deathwing Knights. However, it does prove that you don't need it all the time. Would it have been easier with Mortarion? For sure. But do you need it? Apparently not, which is interesting. So again, lots of anti-infantry firepower. There's not too much here that is going to deal with bloat drones. The Vindicators are the only thing that are going to reliably kill the bloat drones. I've had 5 Deathwing Knights come into a bloat drone. As long as you keep 2 CP, -1 damage, they will not kill it. And that was with sustained hits as well. They won't kill it. Vindicators will kill them. However, again, Vindicators can be swingy on shots. So they might have to commit both. You can always -1 to hit it. And if you just set it up, because they got short range, that you can get a Brigand to react, put itself in metal range of the Vindicator, AP6, that 2-up save doesn't mean anything. You're going to clean through, blow that thing to high heaven. And in this list, all the output was in the triple Knights, the double Vindicator, and there was 1 squad of 6 Inner Circle Companions as well, which is, annoying, but Death Shroud can take them. As soon as the Vindies go down, all this list has is lots of MSU scoring, which, again, Death Guard can just pick up infantry for days. Like, the Plague Bus can literally drive up, drop 1 guy out before it moves. He can move, go kill a squad, drive up, drop another caster out, he kills the 2nd squad, or shoot from firing deck. You can easily kill MSU infantry with Death Guard. It's not an issue at all. So, you can relatively ignore that. Now, obviously, he did manage to get some points off that, 71 points, because of all the MSU scoring, but it's not going to help contribute to him. Again, he's got Rotagus. He can just sit on a point and be like, I don't care if you want to try and touch me in combat. Okay, Deathwing Knights, you can Charge me. Cool. We'll be here all day. You can't touch on with any MSU scoring because I'm too fat. I hold up the entire thing. Once the Vindicators go down, this list just loses output. And then you have the anti-infantry, the weight of shots. The Gatlings at 8, strength 6, AP 3, 1 damage will do work on Death Ring Knights. -1 damage doesn't mean anything to 1 damage weapons, but you've got the AP and the strength to hit them on 2s, wound them on 3s, putting them on their invuln. Weight of dice, Death Ring Knights will die. So can definitely see how this went in his favour because I just feel like the other list just didn't have any output. It had scoring, fantastic scoring. The Vindicators were hard carrying the damage output, especially the ranged. As soon as they go down, I can see this list getting absolutely picked apart by this Death Guard player, and it shows in the score. 89-71 is a very convincing victory, especially in the final round as well, given that he had some real close ones up here and up here as well. So it seems like in the brawling game, the Death Guard still do come out on top, and it's these hypermobility games, like the Yanari and the Hypercrypt Necrons, where we struggled the most, which is again very, very on brand. But again, extremely well done there. A quick flat back to the list there for Grant. And for, again, Daniel Redhouse, who also seemed to make the list with him. But congratulations to both of these guys, and especially to Grant for going 6-0 with this list. Incredibly well done. Incredibly well done. So, second list we're looking at, again, I'm just going to have a quick sip. This is really dry. It's really warm in the UK at the moment as well. So, a full Death Guard one. Now, this was only a smaller event, so it's a GT, but we went 4 wins and 1 loss. BC Barbecue Brawl, 30-player event. So we had Typhus, a Biologist Putrefier, a Foul Blightspawn, a Lord of Virulence, Mortarion himself. 1 squad of 10 player rings with a more standard loadout with a single melter and dual blight launchers, though. Probably would switch that around personally, but again, it works for him. 2 squads of Death Shroud Terminators, so we got 1 to go with Typhus, 1 to go Lord of Virulence. 1 squad of Death Guard Cultists, because again, always bring your Cultists. 2 FA Blight Haulers in squads of 1, which is interesting to see. A Predator Annihilator as well, rocking full last cannons. Okie dokie, why not? And triple Plagueburst Crawler with 2 of them rocking Entropies, 1 of them rocking Spitters, and a Chaos Rhino. So quite it's a standard sort of Death Guard approach at first, and then kind of goes off a bit more on the vehicle side with the Blight Haulers and the Annihilator. Usually this would be a Destructor and these would be Bloat Drones, but it's not too much of a difference to see why this wouldn't do well. Like, it's still just kind of like Death Guard, good stuff with a little bit of a flair here and a bit of maybe a local tech choice. Maybe it's quite vehicle heavy where he is, so he brought the Annihilator and the Haulers instead of the Bloat Drones and the Predator or Destructor. Again, meta choices can matter, local metas, and it seems to have done well. It went 4-1, so well done on the result. Let's have a quick look at Chris's matchups. Round 1, we had a 12-8 victory against Tyrant's Invasion Fleet. A very toolboxy list with 2 Maleceptors and a single Zoanthrope / Neurothrope brick, because he joins them, makes a big brick of 6. This list was going to struggle against this list, because the Entropies, the Annihilator, you got Mortarion there as well. Very, very hard for this Nid list to kill. The Zoanthropes and the Neurothrope brick are basically the only thing that has the output to do it. As long as you put the mortars into that unit every turn, it's got a 4-up invuln, so cover doesn't matter, like, who cares? You're hitting on 4s, sure, but you're rerolling 1s to wound because of Mortarion. Lob every single turn, maybe you only kill 2 Zoanthropes a turn, but over 2 turns, that unit is now neutered. It just doesn't do anything anymore. And once that's done, you're fairly free to take over the board. Like, toolboxy stuff's great, lots of like gaunts and things to play around the mission with, but once you have no access to kill like PBCs and stuff, you just start parking them objectives and bullying your opponent with a weight. Maleceptors are annoying, but again, these guys can quite easily die to like the output of like, again, the Predator Annihilator sneaks it through, d6 + 1 damage every time, the Entropy Cannons can do it, and then you got Morty to go slap it, plus a 10-man Plague Marine squad as well that can go slap it, or Melter Gun it, grenade it, Typhus can put some mortal wounds on it. You've also then got all your little MSU scory bits having to deal with the 2 MSU squads of Death Shroud, which they have no hope of ever beating in a fight. So as long as the Death Shroud place themselves on the objectives and sit there with Overwatch up, it's going to be incredibly hard for things to approach them. So I can see like the score being close because the Invasion Fleet did have a lot of MSU scoring toolboxy lists, so the score is close, did score well. However, in the end, I just don't see how it was ever getting through. I think this was like an inevitable win for the Death Guard. It was this is going to be close on score, but towards the end, I'm just going to have like lots of stuff left and you're just not as the Nid player. That was my opinion of how this matchup would go based on the lists. Round 2, absolute Chad Rock and Annihilation Legion. Every single destroyer in the game ×3. It was a 20-0 victory. Unfortunately, Annihilation Legion is just not great for Necrons. It's not a great detachment. And a lot of it is like just destroyers and melee, which is all like infantry or like, you know, weak units like that, which we can kill pretty happily. I mean, the heavy destroyers would be scary in this matchup, but again, if Morty makes his 4-up invulnerables, he's just going to bounce everything, walk forward and kill everything. Because again, there's no end runs in any of this here, so -1 save is going to absolutely rip it apart. But, you know, what a Chad for playing what he enjoys. He looks like he just kind of maybe just ran it in for a bit of a laugh. He's playing this list for fun, and he just really enjoys Destroyer Cult. So, you know what? Fair play to your opponent there, but it was, unfortunately for him, a 20-0 victory to the Death Guard player, so it's good for us. Next up, we have Chaos, Space Marines, Pact-Bound, Double Vindicator, a Land Raider, and Double Obliterator. So a lot of hard-hitting firepower there. Did end up being a 14-6 victory. So this is a lot of interesting firepower here, but the problem that can arise quite easily is it can go bad very quickly. I've played against Pact-Bound a lot. Pact-Bound can either roll a lot of 5s, a lot of 6s, or just not get anything. It's the CSM curse. It kind of hits hard, doesn't. And if you, especially with so many points in like the Obliterators, the Raider, and the Vindicator, there's not much outside that to play around with. So if the Death Guard player gets a pick or like bounces a turn of like shooting onto like Morty and stuff like that, the Mortars can kill a Blitz with Bioblight fairly decently. The Vindicators can get picked up by las cannons and stuff. There's not much here to brawl against Death Shroud. And again, if you have to spend a turn, like, you know, if you're having to spend a turn shooting Obliterators at Death Shroud Terminators, like, again, then the vehicles are going to, like, come and bully you, and you don't really want them shooting that. You want them shooting, like, the vehicles. The Obliterators did take a hit as well. They just no longer melt force. They're not as good as they used to be. The other thing that you have in this matchup as well is the fact that the single Blight Hall is just going to push out really hard, especially with the Cultist, that can push back the Obliterator drop quite easily. And there's nothing really to punish it. That's like a Land Raider, like, chosen it. But again, they don't want to disembark to go and, like, kill, like, 10 Cultists or something like that. So something else is going to have to deal with that, whether that be the Vindicators, the Land Raiders, stuff like that. And if you're just pushing the Haulers forward, like, the chances, like, yeah, okay, cool, the Vindicator or the Raider kills the Hauler, but now he gets shot back by, like, 7 las cannons, all being buffed by Mortari. You don't get any benefits against it. You can't use, like, armor contempt or anything like that. I don't think that detachment has it anymore, to be honest, but the point remains. And Morty, once some of this goes down, so once the Vindies go down especially, like, Morty gets a lot of free reign. The Land Raider ruins it on 4s, and he's a 4-pin 1 against it. The Blitz are going to struggle against Morty, especially after they popped the once per game indirect, which is now nerfed just like ours. Okay, yeah, they have the 5-up sustained, but again, maybe he didn't roll them that well hot. Maybe he did, but I can see this being taken over quite easily once especially since the Death Guard had a bit of melee pressure. Once the Rapid Ingresses came in, once the rounds some back Plague Marines and the pressure onto the CSM player, it looks like it crippled a bit. 14-6 victory, well done. Now, round 4 is where our hero got his loss against Black Templars with a Land Raider and a Spartan. So I guess this event was allowing Legends, which is again a bit weird because his only loss was to the Legends list, so would he have lost if he didn't have the Spartan? Because that's quite a weird thing, but again, we're looking at it because it's still a Death Guard list that did well. Nothing else here was using Legends, so the 4-0 was definitely earned without Legends. Our hero himself wasn't using Legends, so that's why I'm still looking at the list, because it's still interesting. But yeah, there's a Spartan there for some reason. So we had a Land Raider, we had a Spartan, so like a million las cannons, Centurions without las cannons, and there's Crusaders inside there, so yeah, there's a list that can probably kill this Death Guard list and stop it exposing stuff. Like the Predator dies the second it exposes itself because it gets oafed and it eats like 12 las cannons. The Spartan's hard to kill, the Land Raider's going to be hard to kill because like it's just a tough unit still. Like you win it on 4s, you win it on 5s eventually cannons, it's not the greatest. Centurions can be very annoying, and the Crusaders are going to be disembarking with Assault Ramp from both Land Raiders and the Spartans. Going to be flipping your objectives a lot. But it was very, very close game. I could see this being close, to be fair, because again, you just play more cagey with the Plague Burst Crawls and whatnot. Unfortunately, because all the infantry are inside a Spartan or a Land Raider, the Mortar indirect isn't going to get much value until they're dealt with, at which point then the Crusaders are either on your objectives or charging what they want to do, or you're like turn 3 and it's finally died, and it's like, oh, you've lost a bit of tempo there. But a very close game, 9-11 loss, so it was very close in the end. So it wasn't a bit battering even against this weird Legends included list. So a good effort there, mate, and unfortunate loss. And then into the final game, round 5, 13-7 victory against a Tyrannid Assimilation Swarm. Bit of an interesting and weird list. 100 Termagants in this Assimilation Swarm, bear in mind, not Endless Swarm, Assimilation Swarm. Swarm Lord, a Tyrant effects with Rupture Cannon, which is scary to this list, a lot of damage there, but again, more Tyrant can, it's only 2 shots, he could just bounce 4-ups all day, and 2 Von Ryan's Leapers units. So, honestly, like, outside of like losing primary quite a bit until the Gaunt, like, Swarm's gone down, because you've got a lot of last cannons that aren't going to do much against the Gaunts, but again, the Death Shroud will kill them all day, the Plague Marines will kill them all day. There is genuinely nothing in this list that can really hurt you outside that T-Fex. So I think you get an angle to force a T-Fex to make a bad trade, and you put everything into the T-Fex, and you just kill it. Once it's dead, it can't zero out 1E damage because you've got more Tyrant nearby. You then just have free on the board, and then it's all about clearing up the Gaunts before they deny you all of your primary. Once that's done, fairly solid. Like, honestly, I would feel much happier with this matchup in round 5 than I would with this one here, with this one here, and even the Toolbox Nid one. I would be more worried about those 3 than this one. If I got this one round 5, I'd be very, very happy. Just a strange choice of like the attachment, like a Simulation Swarm doesn't have any synergy. He has 1 unit in here, which is a Psychophage, which can make use of the strats, and it's actually a feeding organism. So a very, very strange list choice. I mean, he's clearly done well with it to get to he's, you know, he went 3 rounds and he's 3-1 at this point as well. So it clearly is working. But I think it's working a lot more on the fact that the Gaunts are just denying people primary, rather than actually being like a good list that synergizes with a detachment. No offense to the fellow when I say that, I don't mean it like that, but it's just a very strange list. So unless it's something I'm missing, I'm not too sure. It's a strange one. But I could feel like, again, this would be a fairly comfortable win for the Death Guard. We have enough ways to deal with 100 Gaunts quite easily, especially if you take a -1 save. Half of them aren't even going to get a save now. The Death Shroud squads are going to flame him and kill him. The Marine squad can kill anything it touches. Even one of the PCs can sit on home with the flames if you're really worried. And you have the ways to kill the one threatening thing, which is the T-Fex. Leapers, everything else, Morty can basically just walk around the board completely uncontested. Morty's got sweep attack as well to pick up a load of Gaunts as well. So I can see this one being a very, very comfortable Death Guard win in the end. Although the scores may not look like that, because you probably got denied primary a few turns just because there's so many Gaunts and they're going to score well because they've got so many Gaunts. But as soon as you clean that up, I imagine you were sat there with most of your army by the end of it, and they didn't have much left of theirs by the end of it. But yeah, congratulations again to Chris Hodgson. Well done on the 4-1, mate. And yeah, congratulations. And that wraps up for this week. Sorry, a bit longer this one, because obviously we had to go over two different lists and 2 events. But yeah, if you enjoy the content, please leave a like and a subscribe. Massively appreciate the support. If you want to pick up some gaming aids that are disgustingly resilient themed, check out Saltire Games Etsy. Promo code NERD will get you 10% off your order and kicks back the channel. Check out Vanguard Tactics YouTube channel. Check out all their stuff if you're interested in learning the game, getting some coaching and stuff. Obviously, thank you to our YouTube members. You guys keep the lights on. If you enjoy the content a lot, consider becoming a member. You get access to our Discord, you get access to our giveaways, you get access to our plague surgery streams, all sorts of good stuff like that. And it helps keep the channel going, which is really nice. And last but not least, if you're in the UK and you are thinking of buying some models anyway, consider checking out our affiliate link in the description below for Element Games. Checking that out will basically land you a bit of extra crystals. We get a bit of extra crystals, and everyone wins for no real loss. So yeah, check those out. But again, even if you're not going to do any of that, and you just care to watch the video, thank you so much for watching it. Massively appreciate the support, and just yeah, maybe leave a cheeky like if you could. Anyway, I'll catch you all next week. Stay right on, everyone. Take care.